Forget love. Forget fear. Use this instead. There's a quote you've heard 1,000 times. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. It's one of Machiavelli's most misunderstood ideas, because most people stop right there. They try to choose. Do I want to be loved or do I want to be feared? But Machiavelli wasn't giving you a choice. He was giving you a warning. If you only chase love, you'll be betrayed. If you only inspire fear, you'll be overthrown. But if you understand what comes after both, if you know what truly controls people, then you'll never need to choose again. Because there is a third force, stronger than love, more stable than fear, and infinitely more powerful when you understand how to use it. That force is dependence. Love looks beautiful until it's tested. Love is praised by poets, worshipped by the weak, and sold to the public as the highest ideal. But here's the truth. Love doesn't protect power, it destroys it. Why? Because love is based on feeling, not strategy, and feelings change fast. The people who say they love you will still betray you the second their feelings shift. Love is fragile. It requires constant maintenance, validation, reassurance. You have to stay likable, approachable, soft. And in power, softness is seen as permission. The second you make one decision they don't like, the love fades, and now the crowd turns on you. Machiavelli knew this. He warned, love is preserved by the obligation which the recipient feels towards you, but fear is maintained by a dread of punishment which never fails. Fear is better, but still not enough. Fear is cleaner. When people fear you, they don't question you, they don't test you, they don't challenge you, they step aside, they obey. But here's the weakness in fear. It isolates you. Fear creates distance. It builds resentment in silence. And that resentment grows while you're not watching. Because fear doesn't create loyalty. It creates waiting. Waiting for your mistake. Waiting for the moment they can rise while you fall. Fear makes you a tyrant. And tyrants don't last. They get overthrown. Not because they weren't powerful, but because their power was built on compliance, not necessity. Most people are emotionally unstable. They react, panic, argue, vent, explode. But you're the one who never flinches. You control your presence. You absorb stress instead of creating it. You become their emotional anchor, their psychological baseline, and once people get used to your emotional stillness, they fear losing it, because now your calm is their comfort, your silence is their clarity, your presence is their peace. And suddenly, they're not following you out of fear, they're not praising you out of love, they're protecting you because you became the one thing they can't afford to lose. Real-world examples of strategic dependence. Think about Julius Caesar. He didn't conquer Rome by brute force alone. He built alliances that made others depend on him to maintain their own power. He made their survival tied to his. Or Vito Corleone. He didn't beg for loyalty. He provided quiet favors, protection, respect. And those favors made him irreplaceable. People didn't just respect the Don. They needed him. That's what Machiavelli meant when he said, a prince must make people dependent on him, not just feared, not just loved, necessary. Applying this to your life, you don't need to be Caesar or a king. All you need to do is reposition yourself. In business, become the one who solves problems quietly, never publicly. In relationships, become the one whose absence is felt deeper than their words. In social groups, become the one who never begs, never brags, never follows, but is always in control of their own frame. Make your time expensive, make your presence stable, and make your silence meaningful. Once you do that, people stop questioning you. They start defending you, sometimes without realizing it. They don't even know why. They just feel it. They feel that without you, everything is a little weaker. That's real control. That's Machiavellian leverage. Final truth. You don't want to be liked. You want to be needed. People will say it's better to be feared than loved, but Machiavelli would smirk, because the wise strategist knows neither fear nor love lasts forever. But dependency, that lingers. It grows. It protects you when your name is under fire. It keeps doors open even when you've left the room. It builds you into the very system they rely on. And that's when you've won the game without ever playing it. Because once you're needed, you're no longer one of many. You become the one. And people don't betray the one who keeps them alive. They guard him like a secret. They serve him like a king.
That's what real power feels like. It's not about noise, not about being seen, not about being right. It's about being the one they calculate around. You don't demand loyalty, you make it logical. You don't force respect, you make it inevitable. You don't argue for your value, you make them feel the drop when you're gone. This isn't charisma, it isn't charm, it's positional gravity. The force that bends others without needing to touch them. And when you master this, you stop living for applause and start moving like a black hole in their universe, silent, massive, and inescapable. Master the final illusion. Most people want to be understood, but Machiavelli knew the more people understand you, the less they respect you. You don't need to be explained, you need to be felt. Felt in the tension when you walk into a room, felt in the silence after you speak, felt in the consequences when you leave. You want them to wonder, why does everything feel off without him here? Why do I keep thinking about what he said? Why do I feel like I need his approval even if I won't admit it? That's not fear. That's not love. That's control, installed without ever asking for it. You're not just a man anymore, you're a structure. When they think about their future, you're in it. When they make moves, they glance at you first. When they speak about you, they speak carefully, respectfully, cautiously, because you've become a fixture in their reality. And fixtures aren't challenged, they're accepted, then preserved. This is the final level, not to be seen as powerful, but to be relied on so deeply that your removal feels like collapse. Machiavelli would call that the highest form of manipulation, not to dominate from above, but to operate from within. No force, no argument, just present. But here's the darker truth. When you become the structure, you stop being a person in their eyes. You become infrastructure. Not something they admire, something they require. They stop questioning you, not because they've made peace with your power, but because they've built too much around it to risk pulling it down. That's when you control them without ever touching them, not with threats, not with influence, but with quiet psychological gravity. Because once people tie their identity, success, or security to you, they stop challenging you and start defending you for their own survival. Now the game changes. You don't walk into rooms to earn respect. You walk in and people adjust automatically. Your silence gets interpreted. Your pauses become loaded. Your indifference gets mistaken for strategy. And sometimes it is. They whisper when they mention you. They watch you when you're not watching them. They feel off balance if you don't acknowledge them. And when you speak, you don't just speak words. You speak signals. Minimal, deliberate,
measured, because at this level, power isn't about making moves. It's about forcing others to make moves around you. You're not just navigating the world, you're bending it, not with threats, not with charm, but with calibrated mystery. They don't know how to read you, and that destabilizes them. They don't know what you want, so they offer everything. They don't know where you stand, so they avoid standing against you. Because uncertainty breeds caution, and caution creates control. This is no longer about dominance. It's about becoming the axis around which others spin. And here's the final layer Machiavelli would admire most. You never asked for any of this. You never begged. You never fought for the spotlight. You simply removed every weakness they expected to see and replaced it with stillness, with control, with silence that made them paranoid. And once they projected power onto you, you let them. You didn't stop them. You didn't correct them, because their imagination always builds a stronger version of you than you ever could. You gave them nothing, and they gave you everything. Now they serve the image, they protect the idea, they obey the myth. This is the end game of power. Not being followed, but being woven into the system so tightly that removal becomes unthinkable. So when they ask you, do you want to be loved? Do you want to be feared? You say nothing, because the answer is already there, in their silence, in their calculation, in their hesitation to ever cross you. You don't want love, you don't want fear, you want to become essential, and once you're essential, you're not playing the game anymore. You are the game.